Hi guys, and welcome to the Chitchat show with me, the Alabata One of Sports. My name is Idafi Matthew Esiogane, and on the show today, like we always do, you saw when we had the great voice of football, Martin Tyler, on the show, and Victor Judo Galu and a host of others. We always look for ways to find solutions to certain things and get to know the people that we're chatting with. And on the show today, we're looking for solution on how Nigeria football can grow. We're trying to see what we can do, what are the ingredients we need to put together to make Nigerian football grow to that very, very height that we all dream of, that we believe we have the potential for. And the person that I have on the show today is someone who, as way back 1979, some of you are viewing this, just think whether you were, I don't know if you were born in 1979. For those of you who were born in 1979, or before 1979, you know how far back that is. He had his UEFA A license, not C, not B, but A license. Became a FIFA instructor for the Oceania region in 1981, and also Australian Football Confederation in 1988, technical director of the Australian Soccer Federation, 1990 to 1995. I could go on, and he's worked in different places and managed different national teams as well. He's worked with Bahrain from 1979. He's worked in Sydney Olympic, worked in Johor, Vietnam women national team, Home United, Perak, Thailand under 23, Mahon Bagan, Kalatian, Mumbai City FC, Laos, just to name a few. And he's also, at the beginning of his career, was a goalkeeper for Liverpool Schools FA youth team. Yeah, you would say that he never made it to the very top, but as a coach, he's made it to the very top. And then he's also had the opportunity to work with some Nigerians. So what better person to call on and say, come and talk to us? And then let's not forget that Coach Steve Darby also have a Bachelor Honors in Physical Education from the University of Leeds and a postgraduate qualification in Sports Administration from the University of Canberra. So if we're talking about somebody who really knows, this is someone who knows. And then he speaks Arabic, French, good English, a little bit of Malay, and you know, you can add all of that. It is a pleasure and an honor to have a legend and an icon on the show today. Steve Darby, you're welcome to my Chitchat.
Well, thank you for the glowing introduction. I shall send the money later. Amidst the languages, I didn't have any Igbo, though I tried to learn Igbo, and because I always felt whenever I had a foreigner in my team, whatever nationality, I tried to learn a few words just to make them feel comfortable, to show a bit of respect towards them. And my Nigerian lad looked at me and just burst out laughing. And he said, "Coach, I can't speak Igbo either. I speak Pidgin." So,
Coach, can you speak Pidgin?
Oh God, and I gave up. He burst out laughing when I tried, and it was just so difficult. He tried to teach me, but it sounded simple, but it wasn't. I found, but his English.
Okay, so let me teach you something. Say, ego better.
Ego better.
Good. That's Pidgin English. Say.
But what does it mean?
That it will be good. Things will be good. Ego better means.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Say, Nigeria na better country.
Nigeria naga bet country.
No, Nigeria. Say Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Na better.
Nigeria na better country.
Good. So that's Pidgin English for you. You know what I mean? You just It's English that doesn't come across as English. So it's Pidgin. It's broken English. It's like speaking Jamaican patois, right? Or
yes.
Probably speaking Cockney. Okay, so
yeah. Well, I can't understand Cockneys anyway, so it's all right. I'm from Liverpool, so we speak different up there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys. I mean, when you go to Liverpool, you probably think that you're in Scotland. I mean, what they say is different. It's like when you're in the US and you go to Texas or you go to Alabama, and you're like, okay, what are they saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with you, for instance. You've worked practically everywhere. You've worked with FIFA. You've seen football from all spheres. And you've not been in Africa, have you?
Only twice. Once was a holiday to Egypt when I was a young lad. And secondly, I took Thailand to play against South Africa in the pre-World Cup in Nelspruit.
Okay.
And that was sadly one of the fixed games that was going on at the time. There was fixing going on by Wilson Raj Pamal, whose book is out called Kelong Kings. And he spoke about some of the games he fixed, and that was a game that was fixed, not by the South African players, by the referee. So the South African players were fine. There was no problem with them. Our lads were fine. South Africa were better than us. They battered us. You know, that was no problem. But it was just a strange game. And I realised later, you know, he was making his money, this fella, off the referee and off the betting.
Okay. All right. So let's come now. One of my constellation is the fact that, you know, I love reggae music a lot. Bob Marley is one of the artists that I love. And there's this line in one of Bob Marley's song, Rat Race, and he said that in the abundance of water, a fool is thirsty. And every time I go through that song, there is everything around me that reminds me of that song. I'm from the Niger Delta, where you have the oil in Nigeria, but it's also the poorest region in the country. And so it's also resonate like in the abundance of water, a fool is thirsty. And then in terms of football and sports, we've got a lot of talent. I mean, it's a country of about 200 million people. My statistics are not correct, I don't know. But we've got over 40 million football-loving fans. And then we've got at least minimum a pool of 1 million talented footballers. But still, we cannot get a national team that the world will be afraid of. And then countries like Spain, Germany, Brazil. Okay, Brazil is as big as Nigeria. France kind of intimidate us in football. Italy. What can we do? Look at Belgium, for instance. Belgium could be just like 2 or 3 states in Nigeria. What can we do to rise up to the level where Nigeria can constantly be at the top 4 or top 6 in the world?
Well, certainly the first thing is I agree with you. The talent is there. There's no doubt. I mean, anyone that says Nigerian players are not talented is stupid. You know, there's some great footballers. I've seen them on a personal level, and I've seen them obviously on TV. But the perception, and I think as well that Nigeria should be challenging for top 6 FIFA ranking, semi-finals of the World Cup. I mean, once you get to top 6, anyone can win it. It's not like Nigeria should win, same as England should win. You can't say that. But if you get into the top 6, you've got a good chance. And that's where I think Nigeria should be, at that level. The perception I get is that the players are not allowed to play by administrators being corrupt, not paying their wages, telling lies, not getting proper salaries, not being treated well, broken promises. Coaches are not being allowed to coach because by administrators again. And I use the word administrator / politician. Now, again, this is a perception. I'm an outsider. I've never worked there. I've got 2 mates who have coached in Africa who loved it, Stephen Constantine and Tom Seinfeld. And they speak so highly. But again, the word corruption keeps coming through. And this perception that the talent is not allowed to flourish, is not supported mainly by the administration. That would seem to be my initial fear.
Okay, so if we want to get it right, what do we need to do?
Well, there's only one answer. That's education. And that's education at every level of life. For example, sitting behind you now, I can see your books, your football books. You read, you're educated. That's what we should be encouraging every child to do. Boy or girl, they should be encouraged to read. Even if it's just football books, that's better than nothing. And because with the books, you might start to get values, you might start to get ethics, and they might, start to do the right thing as it comes through society. The next stage really then is a football education. Now, the kids first play inside Nigeria. It's just the reality. Yeah. So what they get inside Nigeria should be corruption-free, should be values, should be giving them education as well, because not every kid will make it. Lots of kids fail all over the world. It's the same problem all over the world. They should be looked after as people, helped as football. Then the good ones will move on. And that's important. They almost like go on to the University of Football. Now, what I would do is I wouldn't get them to go to places like Belgium or Vietnam or some of the Asian countries. I'd get the good ones to go to Germany, to England, to France, to Italy, where they're going to get top-class academy education. We're taught about being disciplined as a footballer. I've worked with two Nigerian lads, only two in my time, both top-class players, could have played in Europe, I felt, easily. Better than a lot of European lads I know. Good lads as well, nice fellas, I liked them both, but what stopped them was their lifestyle. They had an indifference to drinking, eating, sleeping habits. You know, they were just totally indifferent to all that. They didn't either know about it or care about it. And that stopped them, I think, reaching the top. And it could have got further. Now, they were happy, so, hey, maybe they're right and I'm wrong. But, you know, these lads could have been like a Didier Drogba or a Kante, you know, players who are at the top of the world football level, you know, great players, multimillionaires, you know, which is a benefit. But it is fascinating that when you say, what are the answers? I think any answer has to be, firstly, African driven, secondly, Nigerian driven. I don't think you can have the colonial approach. And that applies everywhere. I've seen this colonial approach tried in Malaysia and in Vietnam. It's a disaster. You know, it's got to be locally driven. You can extract what you think is good from other countries, but it's got to be driven by local knowledge, driven by local role models. Now, I had a player from Guinea who said to me, Coach, he was always broke at the end of the month, and he was one of my highest paid players. And I said to him, what are you doing? Look, can I help you with your money? Can I sort it out for you, put it in a bank and work it out properly for you? He said, Coach, it's not that. He said, I'm the head of an extended family. And he said, I'm virtually feeding the whole village right now.
You know, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, because that's not something I do. You know, we don't have extended families in Liverpool. You know, we're small units, and it's not. And he would tell me, an uncle would come to his house. He'd have to invite him in, feed him. Okay, that's fine. He said, but he had to buy him a present as well. And I'm going, what are you talking about, buying him a present? Why? He said, no, that's what we do. It's our culture. And a lad similar from Burkina Faso, he was highly educated, spoke 5 languages. Malinki, he tried to teach me Malinki, and he was trained to be a doctor. And his football salary was going towards his long-term education. Yeah. And he said very similar. He said, Coach, you will never understand because you've never been poor. Now, I was born in a working class background in Liverpool, but a working class background in Liverpool is not what I've seen on TV in Nigeria. It's not what I've experienced in Vietnam, experienced in Calcutta. So there is different levels of poverty. And when these people are playing for their whole family, they will do anything sometimes. I've had African players want a goal bonus. And I say, no, you'll get a team bonus, because I know you won't pass it. You know, you'll just try and score for yourself. And I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with that. I understand you, but it ain't going to happen. You're part of a team. So that's my perception, that there's got to be this education at the beginning, as a kid, as a person, then as a footballer, in the football academies abroad, quality football academies, not slave labor like Belgium and things like this. And then it will start. And then, of course, you've got to start having your educated administrators who are, I'll say, well paid, because if they're well paid, they mightn't cheat as much, because that's the perception I'm getting, that the money is going into the country from FIFA, AFC, or CAF, from FIFA. It isn't going down to where it should be going to. We all know that. I read a Nigerian journalist called Osasu, I think his name is.
Yes, Osasu. Osasu Bayuana.
Yeah, and I love reading his stuff because he's honest. You can see it, and he's exposing some of the frauds going on, you know, in African football, and that's what it's got to be. It's got to be African driven, Nigerian driven, not colonial driven.
Okay, so what we're saying here is we could take a few from what they're doing in Spain, in England, in Germany, but we have to adapt it or adopt it to our own system and make it work within our system. So talk
Yeah,
to me.
you could take a syllabus, for example, or you could look at the quality of the pitches. You could look at maybe the off-field education that goes on in England for players. You look at the professional structure from Germany. But the people delivering, I think, have got to be Africans who understand the environment that the kid has come from, because every culture is different. You can't change a culture. I've seen English go into Malaysia and say, oh, we do this in England, we do that. They're not there very long. They don't survive. And I'm sure you've seen that in Africa. Fellas come in with the big ideas, they don't last. You've got to use local knowledge. And the best advice I was given as a foreigner was by an Asian lad who said to me, you've got to be like bamboo. And I said, what do you mean? Because there's not much bamboo in Liverpool. He said, you've got to be able to bend. Bend occasionally this way, bend that way, but never snap. And for example, snapping would be going into match fixing. And I could talk about that all day. I said, but you've got to be able to bend and say, well, okay, that works. And an example, I had a Malaysian international as a striker, and he rang me up one day before training. Coach, I can't come training. I said, what's wrong? You're sick? He said, no, I've got to take my mum shopping. And I said, mate, I'm paying you big money, and you've got to be, you've got to be here. And he says, Coach, you can find me, you can drop me, but there's nothing I can do because my mum says I've got to go shopping because my dad's not well, therefore I have to take her. And he was lovely, but in the end I thought, that's where I've got to bend, because I know it doesn't matter what I did to him, he was still going to go shopping with his mum because his mum was far more important than me. So that's how we have to, you have to learn to adapt to. There must be unique Nigerian cultural things which I don't know about, which you will know about.
All right. So let's talk about your experience across different countries and You've been in India, you've been in Australia, you've been in Vietnam, you've been in Malaysia. So let's take it one country at a time. You came from England, where it seems like everything is prime and proper, everything is by the books. Yes, there is still some off color here and there, but I mean, it's a standard. What was it like in Australia? Socceroos.
Very, very similar to England, in as much that, and what you're saying is right. Hey, there's English criminals as well, don't get me wrong, and there's corruption going on in England, but it's not as big, it's not as endemic, and it's quite a shock when it's exposed, and the media do expose it, and if someone is corrupt, they get put in jail, so they don't get let off, so, but because they don't know, because the Prime Minister, so it goes on, but not as big. Australia, very similar to England. The cultural difference there was football was fourth game behind Australian rules football, rugby league, cricket, and then our football. So that was a constant battle. Lovely country to live in, great lifestyle, wonderful place to bring up your kids, but if you were football, I lasted about 15 years there, but in the end, it got to the point where I was getting offered such a good contract in Asia, I had to go because it was my living. You go where the contracts are. Yeah. It's like players. People moan about players getting big salaries. It's not their fault. If you were Paul Pogba and you got offered 300 grand a week, what would you do? You'd take it.
I'd take it.
Of course we would. You blame the idiot who gives him it. That's the one, because that's the real world. We'd all take the salaries on offer. No one gives it back, so good luck to the lad. I worked with Brian Robson, England captain, Man United captain, and he said the same. He said, look, he says, I have no regrets about what I earned. He said, I was probably 4 times the average man's wage. He says, whereas now it's probably 40 times the average man's wage. He says, but I don't blame the players. They've just been, victims of the success of the game. The TV money came in. They've got the money. They're the entertainers. Good luck to them. So, I mean, most of the players don't blame the players. They blame again, it all comes down to this word administration. Fascinating area. And a good administration can make a great team. And that's why we look at things like Germany, and Spain, where they do things very well.
Okay, so before we come to the big money talk, let's move to India. I mean, we were all sleeping. We've not seen India go to the World Cup before. We've not seen India really as a football nation. And then we woke up one morning, and then I hear about the Indian Football League. Not just that, India was hosting the Under-17 World Cup. Is it for? I mean, what happened? How did it? I mean, because I read that you were part of, all of this. What happened in India?
Well, there's two separate leagues in India. I firstly went to the I League, which was the historical league, and I went to one of the big clubs in Calcutta, and it was a disaster. It's the only job I've ever resigned from, and I discovered that probably it was the most racist country I've been in. And I had Indian lads saying to me, "Coach, you white fellas are okay. It's the Indians who are the more racist to me." This was a lad who was Northern Indian, who was light-skinned. And he said, these fellas get treated badly. And a lot of it wasn't so much the colour of the skin, it was racist through the caste system. Because I had a bootman, a lad who cleaned all the boots for all the players. End of the month, I gave him a tip. I felt a few pound. And the very, very high caste, one of the officials, come running up to me, screaming at me, "Why have you given him money?" I said, "Because it's my money, and he's done a good job." He says, "Well, he'll expect it of everybody now." I said, "Well, I hope they do give him it. He deserves it. He does a great job." And he said, "Do you know how much you've paid him?" I said, "Yeah, a few thousand rupee." I'd given him a month's salary. And I didn't know how much he was on, you see. And what I'd realized was that he was so badly paid. But that's what they did. They paid the lower caste systems incredibly poor. And then they were paying other players at the top, the players' end, the top end, from the higher castes, massive amounts of money. Though, sadly, this is where we look at corruption again. A lot of the players were having to give money back to the committee official. So the money was being laundered through the player. And I might say, that sounds awful, and we can talk about this later, the role of the Nigerian agent. They are huge in India, Nigerian agents.
Yeah, because
I
was going to go there, and I wanted you to finish with this, and then we'll go there.
Okay. Then the second part I went to India was, I went to the other side of the country, Mumbai, and that was the new ISL, the Indian Super League. And that was like starting from afresh. And what was happening, the owners were from Bollywood, or they were cricketers, which is cricket is God there, and that'll never stop. Cricket's the number one game. So there was multi-millionaires pumping money in, and what they'd done is they'd gone to Europe and they'd looked at best practice, and they had really done a good job on organization of the games, marketing of the games incredibly well, the television coverage, and they brought in high-level players. I mean, the system, how it worked there was the president bought the players. Now, I knew that when I went in, so I accepted it. If you go in, you accept that, okay? President comes up to me one day and says, "I've got you Nicholas Anelka." And I went, "Oh, no," because he'd just been banned in England. I thought, it's going to be trouble, because that's where I learned that the image is not always the reality.
Yeah.
Nicholas Anelka was the most humble, professional, dedicated lad I've worked with. Besides being the best player I've worked with, it was, if I said be there at 9, he was there at 10 to. If I said wear one pink sock, one green sock, he would wear it. He'd stay behind after training. He was a dedicated professional, devout lad, devout family man, brought his kids and his wife along with him, paid for them himself, devout Muslim, but didn't push it on anybody else, just kept to himself, his own beliefs, So that was where there was, I realized it, but they ran that league superbly. Whereas and all the Indian players, of course, from the I League wanted to come across the ISL because they were getting treated properly in good hotels. They were getting airplanes, not 15-hour bus drives. They were getting a 2-hour plane ride, and they were getting paid on time, which is one of the major things. The only problem they had was a lot of these presidents, or the new guys, they got ripped off by agents from all over the world. Brazilians in particular in this case. Loads of Brazilian agents came in and just made a fortune, taking money out of the game for players who were just not worth it. They didn't know how to do it. YouTube players, you could call them, you know.
Okay, yeah, we heard about this. I was reading an article and somebody said that agent from Brazil, agent from Africa and Nigeria inclusive, brought in all these YouTube manufactured players. That's what he said. He said manufactured players, and they were reaping money off suspecting club owners, and they just did all of that. So you were in India. What's the story like? Let me understand, because from your own experience, what's the story like?
Well, I've dealt with, I'll use Nigeria as an example, because most of them were Nigerian agents, one or two Cameroonian, Liberian, but mainly Nigerian. The first thing was, there was almost like a compulsion. They were lying to me, because I would throw a question in which I know wasn't true, and they'd lie. So that was the first thing. A lie came easily. That was the first thing. Secondly, they treated their own players appallingly. There was, in some cases, taking 50% of a player's wage off him. Thirdly, they would then try and get money off the club and try and get money off the player. So they would, which is illegal. You've got to be player or club. So that's another element. And then the next one is, the classic one is an agent came to me. I'd agreed a contract for the player, which was a decent contract for the lad, no problem. And he said, I want an agent's fee now, 20,000 US. I said, you're joking. You've done nothing. I said, no, you brought him to me. You'll get your money off the player. Oh, no, I don't take money off the player. I said, well, in that case, you're not his agent, then, are you? And he says, well, he said, anyway, coach, don't worry. I'll give you 50% back as normal. So he was then, and I said, well, you're asking me to steal from my club. And he looked at me as though I was from the moon, you know, and that goes, and that's, again, not just Nigerian, don't get me wrong. Brazilians are pretty bad at it as well. But it was the element of every deal was a done deal. And the worst ones I've seen, of course, were the lads who, and that's where I've been doing some work with Mission 89 about almost the slave labor of African players. Players who are actually paying their agent to pay for their airfare, their fee, their visa, whatever, and they're getting dumped in countries like Laos or Thailand. And I mean dumped because some of them cannot play. They're not good enough to be pros. Anyone who saw them play would know that. And I had this in Perak in Malaysia. I had a lad literally walk up to training towards me. And whenever an African lad came up, I got my African player to go and greet him out of cultural respect and whatever. And I said, I told the player, look, mate, I'm sorry, I've got no spaces left. I'm only allowed 3 foreigners, and I've got 3, and they're all under contract. And he's looking at me, and there was tears in his eyes. I said, look, you're welcome to come and train, keep fit for a few days, and I'll try and help you out at the next club. He was hopeless. He was, and I spoke to my African players later. I said, what's going on? He said, coach, he's borrowed money to come here, paid the agent dumped him at the airport. He's working his way around Malaysia, trying to get, and he can't afford to go back, and he can't afford to go back without money because he's got to pay back his family who he borrowed the money from. So, and this was an agent doing it to his own player, you know, and another one, it's better to give you practical examples because that at least means you know I'm talking the truth. I had a trial match one day when I did need a foreigner, and I had my lad from Burkina Faso next to me because I'd play senior players with me to see what they felt. Hey, do you think he's a good player, or what do you reckon on him? Do you know him, and things like this? And we both said, hey, that's not a bad little player. He's a little small fella. It's not about player. I said, yeah, he's got a great name for an African. I was laughing. It was Preston McDonald. I said, there's not many Preston McDonalds in Africa, is there?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and said, I know Preston McDonald. That's not him. So after training, he went down and spoke to him, and the lad disappeared. And I said, what was it? He said he bought Preston McDonald's passport. He doesn't know if Preston McDonald sold it or had it stolen. He had no idea. But this lad had bought the passport and was going around the world trying to be a footballer as Preston McDonald. And so, you know, that's what's going on. You know, it's that is the worst thing. It's the most hurtful thing I've seen, though. The top end, if an agent takes 50% of your wages, you're stupid for giving him it. But if you're a young lad from the villages and you're told you're going to be a star and you believe it and you're ripped off, I think that's disgusting and immoral. And that is going on a lot. I've seen there are gangs, literally. I was in Vientiane in Laos. There's gangs of African lads, not causing any trouble. They were just walking down the streets, started to sell watches, started to sell rice and things like this. And because they had they had no money, because they weren't even good enough for the Lao Football League. And that's a low standard, I can tell you.
Poor standard league.
Yep. And we had a case there where a Liberian, in this case, a Liberian agent, he brought in over 20 lads from Liberia. And one was a 14-year-old, which is fairly illegal. And we only found out about it when a couple of these lads, I'll say, escaped, got back to Liberia and complained, and the BBC followed it up and said, what's going on? And then we checked. I got the contracts and the records out, because I was national coach then, and I was helping them with the admin. And I looked, and this lad, I said, he's down as 19. He's 14. He had 2 passports, of course, and he wasn't a bad player. He was probably one that could have made it, But I said, you can't bring a 14-year-old child into a country, and he was literally sleeping on the floor under the stadium, And it's again, and what it was the Liberian agent. He'd paid a bribe to allow immigration to get the visas. They were trying to get them into the Lao first team in this club. Once they played a first team game, if they were any good, they moved on to Thailand or to Malaysia, Singapore, where there's decent money. It was like a step into the system, because the Laos laws weren't as strong. Like, it's so hard to get into Singapore, but it's not that difficult to get into Laos, So that's what's going on. And whilst players are being treated terribly, that's got to start at home as well. It must be heartbreaking, because I've spoken to honest Nigerians, honest African lads, and they say, Coach, it kills us as well, believe me, when we see this going on, and we just don't know how to stop it.
Yeah, because for me, I work with Nation 89 too, and I've been a victim. I was dropped somewhere in Cape Verde some years ago, and I survived it. But I always say to this, this agent comes in and tell you, first thing, they show you a picture of themselves with maybe a Coach Steve Darby. They come to you in wherever you are working, and they are, Coach, can I have a picture with you? Or maybe they go to England and take a picture with Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger. Yep. And then they bring that picture and show to you, like, look, I was with Arsene Wenger 2 weeks ago. And then they bring out their phone and make a phone call and pretend like they're talking to Arsene Wenger. And like, oh, I'm with the player right now. He's here. We're preparing his document. We're going to send his name so that you send his invitation to Nigeria, and then we'll bring him to England. And then that player is going to believe anything, because this guy came in a big car, is wearing expensive clothes, jewelries, expensive phones. And then the catch is, we're going to pay money for the invitation. We're going to buy your flight ticket, so you will pay for all of this. And then you've seen Arsene Wenger. So your thinking is, even if I don't get to play for Arsenal, I'm going to play for one of these clubs in Europe, and when I start earning top dollars, it solves every problem. So you have to go and borrow. So this is my question to you on this. What is the procedure to take a player from, say, Africa to Europe? Does the player needs to pay any money, like buy form, pay for invitation, flight tickets, or whatever?
Any player who pays 1 cent, 1 penny, is being conned. Because if a club wants you, they will pay you. If the agent thinks you're good enough, he will pay you. So as soon as you hear about money, you have to pay, blank them. It does not happen. And even if you've seen letterhead, because I've seen forged letterheads from English clubs. I've had them sent to me. I had one sent to me in Laos from Everton, and I'd worked for Everton, and I've gone, that's dodgy forgery. I know it, and so like the phone number was wrong and things like this. So you don't need that. And the second thing is, every country is different. So it's not a football rule, it's a work permit rule. You can't get into England unless you're in the top top 75 nation, etc. All this. So Belgium's a lot easier. It's done on salary. So every nation is different. That's why they go to Belgium. They don't go to England. It's very hard to get into England. And that's again not a racist thing. That's a protecting our own workers. That's what all it is, really. Yeah. And that applies to. That's why there's not many Brazilians in England, because the best Brazilians go to Spain, and if they're not in the national team, they might still be way good enough for England, but we won't let them in because they're not in the national team.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing, is that they don't have to pay. And of course, the most important thing is they've got to be over 18, because the FIFA football laws say a transfer can't go on if you're under 18 unless the family moves over. Now, let's be honest, it goes on. For example, in England, you can't sign for a club when you're 12 or 13 if you are from more than 90 minutes away from the club. Now, for example, if you're Southampton, half your 90 minutes is in the sea. Same for Liverpool, you're on the Mersey. But Manchester, for example, they are in an area where there's Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Everton, all within 90 minutes. So the competition is vast. But so they can't, on paper, they can't go outside 90 minutes unless the family comes in. So what they do is they see, I'll say David Beckham lives in London. They want Beckham. What they do is they employ Beckham's dad as a scout. And then they buy Beckham's mum a house in Manchester. So the family does move up, and so mum goes to work in the marketing department of Man United. So again, I'm not saying whether you call that corrupt, I don't know, whether that's flexibility.
No, that's flexibility, actually. It's not corrupt. I mean, that's like looking at the loopholes, available loopholes that are legal, and exploiting it.
And it did, and they were legal. They did employ them because our tax system is so thorough. You have to have, the tax system will get you anyway, no matter what. So that's the realism of what goes on there. So, but the most important thing is to any kid is don't believe. I mean, it's so easy to say that. I know. Like when I was 16, if someone had come up to me and said, "If I give you an injection, you'll be able to play for Liverpool," I'd say, which arm do you want? You can stick it in my bum if you want.
I'll say the same.
Exactly. So you don't blame the kid because the dream is there. And I don't blame the kid for having the dream, because you want to have a dream. I blame the person who's giving the dream, not only giving them the dream, but giving them a false. Yeah, it's killing them. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if there wasn't a number of suicides. I'm sure, Lorena Bright at Mission 89, she spoke very highly about the things that's going on. Turkey, I don't know much about Turkey, but she's told me there's a lot of problems in Turkey. I know there's problems in Belgium. So realistically, it's not easy, but one argument would be you have to license the agents. Okay, but and I know, where to get a Nigerian passport, don't you? Yes. So do you think you know how to get a Nigerian agent's license? Of course you do. You know how much the going rate is. You know who you have to pay a backhander to. Now, it's a lot more difficult in certain countries, but in other countries it's easier because of the nature. My Vietnamese driving license, I never took a test. I just went to the Vietnamese policeman, gave him a donation to the policeman's fund, and I got my license over the desk. So it goes on in every, to some extent in different parts of the world. But that to me is the way is you've got to license agents, and if they catch the agent being a criminal, ban him if you can. I'd arrest him as well, but that's so hard, for doing the thing, for dumping a kid in Laos or Thailand. I mean, there's lads in Thailand who are going to Division 2 and Division 3 teams, and they're not getting paid. They're getting put up in a room, maybe there's 6 or 7 of them. They're being maybe given rice once a day, and they come training, They work their guts out. They want to be good footballers. Some of them make it. That's why these clubs or lower clubs give them a chance. If they make it, they then sell the player to a high tide to top league club, and the lad makes money. Usually the agent hovers back in then, trying to get his cut. But the others who aren't good enough, I mean, I'll be quite blunt, some have gone into male prostitution, some have gone into crime, and, and of course, the next thing along is drugs, because that's the easy way out. People will give you money to sell the drugs, and it goes on. It's a massive network, which is so wrong for the good people.
Well, I do hope that, we can, like I always say, that we can't eradicate it, but we can reduce it by, passing these messages on.
Yeah, reduce is the word. I don't think you'll eradicate. I agree with you. Reduce, yeah.
And hope that one day, players will be wiser, parents. One of the things that I learned personally, one of the things that I say when I was on my radio show and when I do things, and I say this, most footballers, the problem, especially in Africa, is the parents are not involved until they begin to make money. I think that a lot of parents should be involved. Once you see, not everybody is going to go to school and become a doctor, engineer, a lawyer. Not everybody is called out to be an academic.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So if you see that you have a child that likes to play football, get involved in their life. Talk to them. Let them trust you enough to tell you anything that is going on. Because in that regard, the parents might have better information and better knowledge, or someone that they can call. Oh, Daffy, I hear this agent wants to take my child abroad, but he says we should bring in this. I mean, I've had many people call me on that, lately. This agent said that we should bring in the value of, let's say, $2,000. And I was like, you know what? Even if it is $1 you're paying, it's a crime. That guy is trying to dupe you, because if a club have watched your player, or an agent have watched your player and seen that, okay, this boy is very good, the next thing he does is he could sell his car to make sure he takes that player abroad. So I keep giving them stories of Mino Rolla and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, because I was in Sweden at the time, and how Mino Rolla put everything on the line to make sure he gets Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and we see what Zlatan had become. And Jorge Mendes and Jose Mourinho, Jorge Mendes and Cristiano Ronaldo, and a host of other agents, Pini Zavi and the rest of them. And I said to them that if your child is talented, that's already a plus for you. The next thing is you've got to monitor your child. Now you start to control what he does off the field, because the coaches are going to do what they do on the field. But then how he sleeps, what he eats, is it drinking alcohol? Is it smoking? Is it playing gambling? Because those are the habits that are going to wreck that talent. Because for every talented person, there is distraction. So if you control those off the field and you relate very well, you will produce a football player that can rise like David Beckham, who even after the game, or Jude Gallo, or some of these great players, Yaya Toure, Samuel Eto'o Fields, who would turn out great. And some of them listen, but some don't. So we just hope that we could keep preaching this message and telling the parents, you can't have a player with $1 million talent and you don't want to be involved in their life. I mean, if you have a son that have $1 million talent on his feet, I would invest all of my time in him.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%, because logically you would think the parent, his first thing is to care for the child, to care for their lifestyle, to care for their values, to make them happy and healthy. That's what you'd think a parent would be. Whereas the agents don't care. They see you as a dollar. So I think that's a step in the right direction. We'll never eradicate it, because there's criminals in every country, in every society. All we can do is aim to reduce, and the effect of the parent, a quality parent, for want of a better phrase, is going to be very important. To teach a kid, or to say, no, you're not getting on that plane at the age of 16. We're not giving you a false passport. You're going to school till you have to finish. You go and play for a Nigerian Premier League team first. And if you're good enough to get in the Nigerian Premier League team, or you're good enough to get in the Nigerian under-17s, then they will start to say, let's go abroad. I mean, the other thing they've got to stop doing as well in Africa is age cheating. because, you know, it's not fair on the players. You know, if the under-17s, there's someone who's 20 in it, is going to be better. Now, that kills a chance for a kid to again get seen at the next level by someone who's cheating. And it's not going to benefit anybody. Look how many World Junior Cups Ghana won. And how much have they won at the senior level? Next to nothing. So, got to start getting rid of, again, we look at administration, don't we? Who puts these players on the team list? The administrator, who knows that the 20-year-old hasn't got a birthday that says he's under 17. And a few years ago, way back in the early 80s, I saw a team sheet from an Arab country. Every single kid was born in January. Now, somehow, I don't think that was going to happen. There must have been, you know, and they were all born in January of the year. So they just sneaked in. So, you know, you knew it was Ben, but you can't disprove it because the passport showed it. So you couldn't, football was not above the governmental law. Couldn't say you got a dodgy passport, but it was cheating. And that's going on. That was the Middle East thing. You had lads who had, you know, there was a famous one where the Saudi team won the Under-17 World Cup in 1987, I think it was. And the stories were, you know, they brought their wife and 3 kids along to celebrate, you know, and they were shaving 3 times a day at 16 and things like this, you know. So, and you saw the team, you should have seen the team photographs. These lads must have had a hell of a life to be 16 and look like they did, you know.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Coach Steve Darby, for your time. And I don't think this is the last time we're going to have this conversation. So I really hope that when we knock on your doors again, you will be available for us. But before I let you go, as a coach, that trial period when you're trying to get a player, what are the things you look at for as a coach? What are the things you look at for in a player?
In a player, well, obviously the first thing is talent. Because if he hasn't got talent, it doesn't matter. What else matters? But there's a lot of people with talent, as you've said, a lot of lads with talent. What then separates them is character. There'll be physical ability as well. So if someone is talented but can't run, is really slow, then you think, well, maybe he's not going to make the top level. So he's got to be physically fit, talented, physically fit, and then I think, and I do investigate this as much as I can, got to have good character. And I don't mean go to church twice on Sundays, because I'm no angel. I don't mean never have a glass of wine, you know, because we're all human. But I mean, be a good person in the dressing room, fit in with the lads, fit in with the atmosphere, be able to crack a joke with the lads, you know, join in the fun in training. You know, and the most important, work for the team. Don't work for himself, work for the team. Because in the end, that will benefit him anyway. So that's his talent, physical, character. That's what I'll look at.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Steve. I hope that I get to meet you in person one of these days. You know, when
you're more traveling than me, and I'll pick my pidgin English up by then.
All right, no problem. All right, thank you very much, and my regards to the family. And
thank you much.
But before you're from Liverpool, right?
Yes, yeah.
Do you think that the English Premier League title, should be awarded to Liverpool?
I think 99% of people have agreed on that. And the only reason that they haven't cancelled the season, I think, is that there are 3 places left for Champions League, and there's probably 8 teams who can still get them. And even more important, there's 3 teams can be relegated, and there's still 6 teams who can be relegated. And the financial aspects of those spots at both ends of the league would make it, they have to play the season. Most people here want to play the season, finish it off somewhere, whether it be in August, doesn't matter. Because we can look at next season. We can have a reduced season if we want to, but because we'll all start the same. But finish this one off for the integrity of the competition and to stop all the lawsuits, because all the lawyers will start making money. You know.
Okay. Talking about making money. Do you think that money that have come into the league is destroying the game, the quality of the game?
No, money's always been in the game. I imagine if you ever get a chance to watch Netflix, There's a program called the English Game. The English Game is about the history of English football, and they were the first pros, how the first professionals came down from Scotland. Money will always influence the game. Some of it's, I mean, and let's be honest, I take money to play the game. I take money to coach the game. So I can't be altruistic and say, oh no, we should be doing it for fun, because, you know, it's my job. So I don't think money's ruined the game. I think some of the people who have come into the game via money have ruined it. I mean, I think there's some lads who are multimillionaires, are great pros, and are great for the game, you know. But Vincent Kompany is a great example to me. You know, what a fantastic bloke he is. The money he's done, the unseen work he's done for Manchester and the community, he's, to me, the perfect example of how a multimillionaire pro should be. You know, Jordan Henderson is very good at this, and Milner. So you're seeing more now, because these men are so rich, they're almost like philanthropists, it's a hard way to say, philanthropists, and they're giving money back to society, which I think is good. You know, I mean, again, it's the same thing. If you were offered $1 million, you'd take it. If I was offered $1 million, of course we'd take it. We both would. Blame the person who gives it, not the taker. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much, and have a good time yourself. Until we meet again.
Thank you. Thank you much.